Nvidia's fastest-growing customer is not Microsoft, not Meta, not OpenAI. It's governments. In its last fiscal year, over $30 billion of Nvidia's revenue, roughly 14% of everything it sells, came from what the company calls sovereign AI. Nations buying chips, data centers, and models for themselves. 2 years ago, this category barely existed on an earnings call. Today, it is a bigger business than most of the S&P 500. Something changed in how the world's capitals think about artificial intelligence, and it happened fast. Today, on The Big Picture, why every government on Earth suddenly wants its own AI, who actually pays for national intelligence, and who profits. Here's the shape of the answer up front. The race is real, but the toll booth is privately owned. The term sovereign AI was popularized by the person with the most to gain from it. Nvidia's Jensen Huang. The pitch he delivered to presidents and prime ministers goes like this. Your nation's data, its language, its history, its citizens' knowledge is a natural resource. Right now, you export it raw to foreign tech companies and buy back the finished intelligence at a markup. You would never do that with oil. So codify your own intelligence, build domestic compute, train models on your own terms, own the refinery. It is a genuinely compelling argument, and it may be the most effective enterprise sales narrative ever constructed, because the customer it targets has a printing press and a flag. The proof it worked is that $30 billion line growing faster than Nvidia's cloud business. The biggest checks come from the Gulf. Saudi Arabia created HUMAIN, a company owned by its $900 billion public investment fund, with a mandate above $100 billion, 11 data centers totaling 2.2 gigawatts, a partnership with Nvidia for hundreds of thousands of GPUs, and a stated goal of making Saudi Arabia a top 5 compute power by 2027. Next door, the UAE announced Stargate UAE in Abu Dhabi, a gigawatt-scale campus run by national champion G42 alongside OpenAI, Oracle, Nvidia, Cisco, and SoftBank, with the first 200 megawatts coming online this year. Understand what this really is. The petrostate conversion trade. These are countries turning barrels into flops, swapping energy wealth for compute capacity before the oil century closes. Europe's motive is different, not converting oil money, but avoiding dependency. The EU's Invest AI program aims to mobilize around 200 billion euros. And this summer, Brussels opened the formal call to build up to 7 AI gigafactories, continent-scale training facilities, backed by up to 10 billion euros of public money designed to unlock more than 20 billion in private investment. 10 countries are competing to host them. France separately announced 109 billion euros in AI investment commitments and champions its own frontier lab, Mistral. Notice the vocabulary European officials use. Technological sovereignty, the AI continent. When Brussels and Riyadh, with almost nothing else in common, converge on the same shopping list, the list itself is the story. Scale down the budget and the playbook survives intact. India's India AI mission put over $1 billion into subsidized national compute, tens of thousands of GPUs that startups can rent cheaply, plus model projects aimed at India's 22 official languages. Japan is funding domestic chipmaking through Rapidus and backing homegrown language models. Singapore built Sea Lion, a model family for Southeast Asian languages that global labs underserve. Dozens of countries now have a national AI strategy, and they all reduce to the same 3 purchases: domestic compute, a model that speaks the local language, and state money to pay for both. When every government independently arrives at the same checkout page, it is worth asking what exactly they are afraid of. Fear 1, AI turned out to be general-purpose infrastructure. After ChatGPT, governments stopped filing AI under technology policy and started filing it under electricity and roads. Things a serious country cannot simply import and hope. Fear 2, compute can be embargoed. American export controls on advanced chips proved that access to AI hardware is a privilege another government can revoke, and every capital watched the biggest chip deals get negotiated head of state to head of state. Fear 3 is cultural. Frontier models are trained overwhelmingly on the English-language internet, which means a nation's history and values arrive at its own citizens, filtered through someone else's model. Each fear alone is debatable. Stacked together, they became a budget line no leader wants to defend cutting. Follow the money and three wallets open. In the Gulf, it is sovereign wealth funds. Saudi Arabia's PIF owns HUMAIN outright, and Abu Dhabi's MGX, a fund built specifically for AI with a target of $100 billion, backstops Stargate projects on 2 continents. In Europe and Asia, it is taxpayers, through subsidies, public compute grants, and state co-investment. And everywhere, there is a third, quieter payer: the grid. National AI means gigawatts of new demand landing on public power systems. And as our electricity episode showed, households end up bidding against data centers at the capacity auction. However the financing is dressed up, the bill reaches citizens through one of 3 doors: the national savings account, the tax bill, or the power bill. Now the twist. Open up any sovereign AI stack and look at the parts. The chips are Nvidia's, designed in California. They are manufactured by TSMC in Taiwan, on machines only ASML in the Netherlands can build. The UAE's flagship sovereign campus is operated with OpenAI and Oracle, and Saudi Arabia's AI factories are a Nvidia partnership, which means almost nobody is actually buying independence. They are buying a better seat inside someone else's supply chain. Only 2 countries are even attempting the full stack, chips to models to deployment: the United States and China. Everyone else is purchasing tiers of autonomy. Your data stays onshore, your model speaks your language, your citizens' queries never leave the country. Real leverage over the silicon, that stays exactly where it was. There is a second problem with the infrastructure framing, and it is arithmetic. When a government builds a highway or a dam, it pays once and collects benefits for half a century. A GPU cluster is frontier hardware for roughly 3 years, and every new Nvidia launch devalues the installed base. The same depreciation clock we covered in the GPU debt episode. So sovereign AI is not a moonshot you fund once and own forever. It is a subscription priced like a moonshot. To stay sovereign, you must keep buying, generation after generation, from the same vendor whose roadmap sets the renewal date. For the customer, that is a treadmill. For the vendor, it is the best revenue model in the world. Recurring income, backed by national pride, approved by parliaments. Governments have built tech champions before, and the record points both ways. Airbus, a consortium of European states, broke an American monopoly and became half of a global duopoly. Proof that state-backed technology can win. But France also built Minitel, a national online network millions used before the web existed, and it died because it was a closed national system while the open internet compounded globally. Concorde flew beautifully and never made economic sense. The pattern across all 3: national projects that compete inside the global market can win. National projects that exist mainly because they are national get lapped by the open frontier. Sovereign models that citizens actually choose over ChatGPT will compound. Models used mainly because the government prefers them will quietly become Minitel. So tally the scoreboard. Countries get real things: data centers, jobs, some genuine autonomy over data and language. But look at where the margin goes. Nvidia sells to every side of every national race at industry-leading margins, and its sovereign line went from near zero to $30+ billion a year. American AI companies get paid to sit inside other nations' sovereignty projects. OpenAI and Oracle in Abu Dhabi, the hyperscalers, partnered into Saudi factories. Power developers and construction firms collect either way. In the space race, the superpowers at least built their own rockets. In this race, nearly every runner buys shoes from the same shop, and the shopkeeper wrote the training plan. Fear of dependence has been converted into recurring revenue for the company being depended on. Let's land this. Sovereign AI is not irrational. The fears behind it are legitimate. Compute really can be embargoed, and intelligence really is becoming strategic infrastructure. But it is also the most profitable anxiety in economic history, a story in which the cure for dependence is sold by the party you depend on. 2 numbers will tell you how this ends. First, utilization, whether these national clusters run hot with real workloads or sit as monuments. Second, choke points, whether any country outside the US and China ever closes one, in chips or lithography or frontier models. Until then, every flag on a data center marks a customer, not a competitor. This is education, not financial advice, so do your own research. Tomorrow on Money Machines, the microwave towers Wall Street built to shave milliseconds, and who pays that toll? Subscribe so you don't miss it.